if you feel like you have a skill gap or you're just starting out, come to an event, talk to James. James will have a 2-hour conversation with you of what the skill gap is, how you can progress through it. And that also involves networking. So it's, 2 birds. It's probably like 19 birds. But just make sure you have some water and a E. coli. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Flight Path SDI's podcast on everything UAS. I'm here with the group. We got Steve Ross, James, Don. I didn't say their last names because it doesn't really matter. But today we're going over recapping our visit at CUAV. We had a booth there. That's the Commercial UAV Expo. How did it go, everybody?
Outstanding.
Yeah, I was quite impressed with the turnout, especially the first evening as we got there. It was like a rush of people, shoulder to shoulder. It was crazy.
It felt like Black Friday, but for drones that night.
Yeah, it was weird. It was like out of all the drone shows I've been to, because, on the gun side, I go to SHOT Show and NRA and, Great American Outdoor Show. You're like shoulder to shoulder, eventually hundreds of thousands of people throughout the whole weekend, whenever it is. But on the drone side, people are a little bit more calm, professional. It's not as many, because it feels like it's industry folks, even though it's like open to whoever. But this one seemed comparable to a SHOT Show, but for the drone side. Granted, it is maybe 1/10 of SHOT Show size wise, but you had a lot of people there and the vibe was outstanding. So anybody watching our socials kind of saw that back then. So what do you think? What do you think made this year different?
I think it was because a lot of people had Part 108 on their mind, whether they're attending the event or had a booth at the event. I think a lot of people wanted their questions answered. And since the NPRM is still out and it hasn't been changed, people were trying to get the sneak peek on everything and figure out where the industry is headed. And I know there's a couple seminars on that during our time there. So.
Yeah, and I agree with Don on this one, especially not just the individuals who are running companies in the industry, but also those who want to expand or have drones as a service and want to know how to, how it's going to affect them or how they can take advantage of this new rule set, or if it's going to be, because there is a bit of back and forth in this. Like there's a lot of opportunities in it, but it does provide some more complexity to the overall operation. So people are trying to figure out, is this something I want to try to jump into right away or wait for things to settle out and see other people figure it out? But I think another factor that people were coming for was with the push going on right now for adversarial made drones and like the DJI security review and all this stuff going on right now to see, what other companies are out there, what other manufacturers are out there that could either possibly be switched over to or that are up and coming that we need to keep track of here, at least in the United States, to be able to say, hey, if I can't use this, what's my backup plan? Who's my alternative? What other aircraft are out there that are US made drones that I could go to essentially?
Yeah, I agree with you on that, James. That was a big part to CUAV.
I wasn't boots on the ground for this show, but watching you guys there, you both looked like a couple kids in a candy store. We're very excited about, talking to other exhibitors. For those of us that weren't there, can you maybe tell us like who this show is for, why you should be attending, what's it all about?
So if I may, I'd say this show is really for anyone in the UAS industry. I know we talk about the Part 108 and, the manufacturers, the aircraft developers who were attending there, but it was also, drone services companies, schools and other colleges. It was a multitude of individuals that came to this. I mean, we met individuals who were just getting started in the industry, changing over from a different career path to who want to get into drones as a career path. And not just on the commercial drone flight business side, but also on the design and development side, because like we mentioned earlier, with that change shifting and more, US manufacturers and even other manufacturers coming into the play, more individuals say like, how do I get involved in either doing this myself or also, working for one of those companies? I'd say it extremely exciting because I myself saw some companies there that I haven't seen since like 2013, 2012. I'm like, wait, what are you doing here? And they're aircraft manufacturers, like Event 38, for example. It was exciting to see them because, 2012 to now, to have lasted that long, that's a pretty big thing in this industry as far as time in the industry goes.
Yeah, not getting bought out or selling, to somebody else and keeping continuous business going. Yeah, it's pretty
Exactly. It's
impressive.
going like, hey, there's stabilization here, and that stabilization is growing across the multitude of other companies too.
Comparing this show to the show that Christian and I attend a lot for in the gun space, do you feel like this show is setting trends, or is it showing off what's already been made? Are they, revealing secrets at these shows of what's come to expect? Or are you getting to see like, hey, here are the changes, here are the products to reflect those changes, or are they driving the changes at this show?
Well, I think if you talk to the right people, you can get some secrets out of them. Because I know I found a few.
Well, were there any unveilings of anything, that hey, this is the first time we're announcing it here? I know Zephyr, our drone simulator, they showed the beta for the search and rescue stuff.
Yep.
That's going to be coming out. But anything technology wise like that, hey, we're announcing this at Commercial UAV.
So I'd say definitely more on like you said, Zephyr releasing more application specific, like the search and rescue module. But then there are companies there that were announcing mergers. Air Velocity was there. They are an up and coming company. They have a lot of pedigree from previous UAS companies. But they also announced that they are, as far as like a drone services company, one of the first to be, publicly traded. So they just got put on the stock market, if you will. And I'd say besides Joby, they're one of the only other companies that have done that as far as like a big way as well. So I'd say that's pretty big. Some companies obviously try to bring their a lot of companies try to show what they have or show what their current capabilities are, either keep things under wraps or try to have a product ready for launch. I'm sure there was a lot of that, but I feel that we were definitely we could have seen more of that, but we were very busy at the booth and very busy going around talking to a few people as well.
Yeah. What were some of the cooler booths? I know for me, one of the big standouts was the simulator that we saw that kind of caters to the military aspect, but it looked so realistic. Who was it? Tech or something like that. I can't even remember.
It was
Christian.
Yeah, I believe
like a FPV simulator or like one of the TV screens.
Anything that had to do with drones. Think of like
an Unreal engine.
Yeah.
Think of like
The
a
graphics
hyper
were
realistic
nuts.
Unreal Engine sandbox. You could, create different scenarios. You can add in different drone models.
Weather.
Weather scenarios. You can add in different applicational scenarios as well. It was meant to be highly customizable. Essentially, it's like we'll give you the infrastructure in a package, in a software package, and then you set it up how you want it, or we can help you set it up how you want it.
Okay. But can it simulate someone coming up and bothering you while you're flying outside? Like, do you have a permit to be here? Ask you random questions in your ear while you're trying to fly. Can they simulate that part of it?
I think that's a mod. You can you can download that mod.
Hey, if
that's like a DLC. You gotta.
Oh no! Add an AI NPC in there that's coded specifically to bother the operator. Yeah. No matter what they do, they just keep bothering them, see if they can operate under pressure. That'd be a lot of fun.
I don't want you looking in my windows.
Christian, what was your first initial reaction when you went up there and grabbed the sticks and started flying? What did you think in your head?
Oh, well, I didn't fly because I'm a horrible pilot. So I was watching James do it. But it was just crazy to me, the graphics on the thing, because I'm a gamer. I've got all this set up, all this stuff here. But when you're seeing it compared to some of the stuff we've seen in the past, it just blew my mind. And then when the guy was talking, the major sales rep of the company was talking about everything that you could do, but then also gave the price tag on it per package, I was like, oh, that makes sense. So, like,
Yeah,
Got
it
to have
was
a
quite
heart attack when
expensive.
I heard the price for it.
I mean, it's over $18K per package per person for amount of time or something like that. I'm sure they'll work with you if you buy in bulk, but some people aren't able. But
It's
like I said, it's for those big military contracts and all that stuff. I'm assuming government contracts.
That's like 18 cents if we're considering military contracts.
Exactly. Steve, I used the company credit card and got 2 packages just so you and I can test it out.
Okay.
If that's cool. Yeah.
Share
It's
the
a
wealth,
write-off,
my
right?
friends.
Yeah.
Please.
And this will be my last episode of the Flight Path. So
Yeah.
You're going to be seeing a lot more content from the simulators. You got to get our money's worth.
exactly.
We're going to be pushing that just a little bit. Sorry, everyone.
Got to get that
I
ROI.
wonder if, actually, I'm pretty sure this is going to happen, but video games in the future are probably going to be based a lot off of Unreal Engine. We're seeing the first FPV simulator, at least in person. Guaranteed in a couple years, there's going to be some pretty solid video games out there using Unreal Engine.
I think there's
Well, I
some
mean,
already out
there
there.
already are, but I mean that's where they took it from.
Knows how much I know.
Obviously, not a gamer.
You played Battlefield 6. Come on.
but yes, probably a lot of different drone simulators are going to incorporate that. But if the cost is like that, that's going to be pretty wild.
Yeah, you're going to push a lot of people out of it.
Just a wee bit.
I saw, back in the day, I remember we had a discussion at the booth over there. The Army had put out a video game, and I'm pretty sure it was like, I'm going to groom some folks to, get ready to be a soldier. I'm sure there's going to be drone pilot ones for, whoever to help you get prepared for.
Well, AVSI this year, remember Orca was showing off that very type of simulator at their booth. I'm not sure if that simulator is out yet, but it was specifically made for, flying an FPV drone with ordnance on it into tanks and other objectives, and they make it more challenging with challenging environments. And I mean, I'm sure there may be like apps or other people that have created games like that already. I just haven't looked into them, but I mean, there's that's interesting consideration. Like, when do we consider it training versus just having fun?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure there's like scientific studies that do show correlation between your brain learning things and learning things that are fun. Like, it's a lot easier when you incorporate fun into learning.
Gamification. Yeah. That's one of the best ways to learn, because it mixes like a kinesthetic. You're getting hands-on, but you're also seeing, hearing. You're mixing all your senses into it. It's really cool. Now,
yeah, and the amount of time, like the times amount that it is more effective is like crazy. It's like 20 times more effective when you incorporate fun and gamify it.
Yeah,
you retain 70 to 80% of what you do, essentially, as far as like hands-on doing, getting that practice. But I'm curious, the simulators were one thing at the show, but Don, what would you say was your like most intriguing thing that you saw at the show?
So Aero Systems West, they manufacture big drones. Like, think of it like a F-150 platform that's the base model, and then you can, add all your sensors and attachments on there and make it whatever you want to make it. And what's cool about what they're doing is they're making a base model platform that any customer could customize. And what I like what they're doing is, and this goes back to the other trend that, the whole DJI ban and Chinese components and all that. I get what they're trying to do, at least what the government's trying to do, is they're trying to, force companies to innovate by putting a ban out there, because, we got to have US made drones in the air. And customers are looking for other solutions. But sometimes those other solutions aren't as easy to use as what it's like the training wheels were on, and we don't know how to ride a bike without them, right? So what they're doing is they're manufacturing drones, and I think they're using ArduPilot or PX4. but I like the direction that they're heading. They're really propelling the industry forward, whether they're taking that open source software and kind of making it their own, or just taking it from scratch and developing a system around that. I think what they're doing is instrumental in helping this industry drive forward, especially for people that come from a system like DJI, where it's just so easy to use and they don't even have to think about it. They're actually developing drones where you got to think about like parameters inside there and what to change and what not to change, and they're trying to push that portion of the industry forward, and I commend them for that. They're doing a good job at it.
Yeah, that is a challenge when it comes to like ease of use. Because you're right, DJI did make it easy to use. I mean, not to put anything out there really, or not to say anything, but if back when I first got my Mavic Pro back there, if I could train my 7-year-old niece, 70, oh, sorry guys, my 7-year-old niece how to fly this thing in and out, it speaks to it, right? So the ease of use of the aircraft platform. Granted, she did have a direct instructor, so that helps. But even then, considering that compared to aircraft that I've had to train others to fly that were PX4 ArduPilot base, it took hours and days of time to get them familiar enough to where you can send them off and be like, all right, you know how to do this on your own. You don't need me watching over you, sort of deal. So it is going to be very interesting with this shift happening right now, how companies try to either match or address those considerations of, is it easy for an operator or an end user to be able to integrate or just, use in general.
Did this show have very many areas where you could actually fly hands-on, like remote in your hand, you could see the drone you were flying, or was it more simulator demos?
There were some demos that they had in the cage in the middle of the expo hall. They set up this huge cage that they were doing some live flights with. I walked in a little earlier before the doors opened as an exhibitor, and it was really cool. There was actually someone with a quadcopter it had tilt rotors on the very front of it. And essentially they could have it so that it swings from a horizontal orientation to almost like it was standing up in midair, and then turned into a multicopter where it could just use 2 motors to spin and move and maneuver itself. It was actually really cool. I wish I remembered the name of the company, but then they essentially re-engaged the bottom motors and then brought the thing back up to a horizontal level too. So there was some interesting aircraft being developed, and I think it's because of this push in funding and desire to have more our own type of made systems that we have here in the United States, or even in Europe as well. There were some cool companies out there that started out in Europe are now getting into the US market that have had multiple years of development and have pretty solid systems. Orchid, for example, is one of them, and they made a VTOL hybrid system, 2 hours of flight time. It has the Starlink mobile antenna on there, so you can connect to it from anywhere, just kind of like you guys saw at the AZ Drone Fest. But it has like ISR capabilities. It's modular, and they're trying to even expand the endurance of that too. And that was many years of research and development to make that system to what it is, and comparable for a multitude of uses. So it's cool to see companies like that coming into the phase more.
So on the commercial side, like US commercial side, other than, warfare and all that, why would somebody need a VTOL hybrid that can fly for 2+ hours?
So we use them pretty often as the aircraft of choice in logistics. So when I was operating at a previous company, we had a 10-foot wingspan VTOL hybrid system that could fly, 48 miles. And the reason we chose, it to be a mix between a quadcopter and a fixed wing is because that enabled us to take off and land from areas that didn't have a long runway. If you just have a fixed wing drone, you need runway. You need a lot of lateral space, horizontal space, in order to gain airspeed to then take off. And then even then, you have to have more lateral clearance to do that. With a VTOL hybrid, you can use 4 or multiple motors to take off and land vertically, get up to an altitude of 200 feet, as long as you fit within the spacing that drone needs. Like we had a 10-foot wingspan, we could have like a 20 by 20 or a 30 by 30 square foot area and take off and land from that space without needing to make a clear runway or have a tarmac or anything like that to take off and land. So what it does is that it enables you to have versatility of where you can operate while also having the longevity of endurance and distance, because when you go to fixed wing, you're just using that one motor instead of 4 motors all the time.
So why would you need a 2-hour flight time?
So 2-hour flight time gets more distance. Well, you can do a lot.
So are we talking about? So I was trying to push you to an answer because I know why. I'm just trying to drive the podcast. But so like pipeline inspections or delivering something over a mountain, things like that. So is that helpful for a 2-hour endurance flight?
Yes.
Okay. Oh yeah. Like power line inspection, so that way you don't have to fly it like a certain amount of time, catch up to it, charge it, then go again. You can just do the whole power line, do the whole pipeline.
Yep.
But
there you go. Yeah. Sorry, Christian. You thank you. I wasn't picking up what you were putting down. I was flying.
There you go. Obviously, it's tough being the host sometimes. Everybody.
I imagine time is money. Time on the ground is you're not making money or it's costing you money.
Correct. The more flight time you have, the better. The more time you spend getting a return on your investment for that drone.
So, but that's a huge difference between like a quadcopter and a fixed wing is that, you are just flying on a flight path, but and then, just doing what you need to do. Like the quadcopter has a little bit more, obviously movement of doing different things. So it's just easier. I don't know. So, one thing that really stood out to me at this show and that I learned just, I guess, about the drone industry in general, there is a ton of pressure washer drone companies that clean buildings nowadays. And I would have never thought that, hey, I'm going to use this drone. I'm going to clean, all these historic landmarks, corporate buildings.
I can see that probably being big
taking over the market.
Being big for solar, cleaning solar panels.
And
but, I mean, when did this become such a thing?
Well, it's kind of
like 5 different companies.
Yeah, it was like drone delivery back in like 2017, 2018. Very few companies, very few pioneers coming into the space, and now drone delivery is becoming far as like a reality because it's nationwide in countries outside of the United States. But now because of the coming Part 108, it can be more nationwide, it can be more prevalent. So with like power washing, it's engineering, you get more creative ideas. Like this is why we say the limits of the technology is the limits of the imagination, right? If you can think and you understand how to do it, especially those in those applications, it can happen. But it's cool to see it come like, talking to the individuals like John Hooks, see like he's one of those individuals that started his time in the drone industry doing that and has now become the expert and essentially
the grind boss.
Exactly. One of the experts in the industry, the grind boss. Really cool, high speed dude, knows exactly what he's doing, not just on the drone side, but like we say, like using a drone for a specific application. It's cool if you know how to fly the drone, but it's even better if you know that industry that the drone is being used for itself, because then you know how to apply it better. And he knows that for sure.
Yeah. Talking about different chemicals with the different mixtures for if you need it for this, if you got too much algae on that, he knows his stuff. And stay tuned because here in a few weeks we'll have him on the flight path as well. So
awesome.
Janger, I think on a previous podcast, you guys had mentioned like areas of opportunity for drones is things that can like take over things that are monotonous or dangerous. And
that is something that is both, really, because it can be monotonous to have to clean a building, once a month, for example. But it can also be dangerous for the people doing it. Having to hang on from scaffolding or other things to be able to really clean that. And some buildings that have complex architecture, you just can't. It's too dangerous to put a human on there to do that. And now with this new technology, you now have an unlock that can. It's really cool to see for that specific application.
Well, and then we were talking about, and we'll probably talk about this on that podcast, you don't need your Part 137, even though you're taking this huge drone, spraying acid, depending on what you're cleaning, spraying acid from it, but you just go ahead and get it. You got money, buy a big drone, buy some acid and cleaning materials, solutions, and just get spraying.
Yeah, and
R107. That's all you need, right?
that's awesome. And then the companies that have been building these things for years, even before anyone's really known about it as an application, it's cool to see. Like Aspira was one of them. Christian or Don, do you guys remember the names of any of the others?
I just remember Aspira just because one of you guys did the whole short on it.
Got it.
No, I don't remember.
Well, I'm sure we'll know their names a little better in the future as they grow in the industry, but Aspira definitely stood out for sure because they also thought about like if you're flying in a downtown area that affects your GPS signal and location. So they've implemented a solution to that where it's actually like a vision based position hold. It's based on what the aircraft sees, so it can avoid and actually hold its position without necessarily just relying on GPS. So I thought that was pretty cool, but I'm a nerd, so that's there's a difference there of what you might consider a cool thing or not.
Were there any boosts that like blew you guys away because like they were just totally unexpected?
Brink was one of them, but they've been around a while, and what they're doing is pretty awesome. They took the software beta flight and they developed this drone long time ago, and since then they've learned and they're really geared towards public safety. And one of the coolest things that I saw is I talked to the guy at the booth before the show started, and he brought me to his computer, and I looked at it and I was like, oh, he's going to launch a drone. And so he had a drone set up in a box in Seattle, and he connected to the drone, opened the box, launched it up, went over the lake, looked and panned around, and then sent it back. And I was like, oh, that is cool.
I talked to Las Vegas PD, the sergeant in charge of their drone program, and he says their goal is to have the different docks throughout the city. And then, hey, if you got a call out here, have the pilot, boom, we're going to send this one out, do overwatch, surveillance, or, trying to reconnaissance, I guess, on finding the person that they're looking for. So it's going to be a crazy, Ready Player One world out there eventually.
I have a question for that though, and this is me on the thinking evil here. How
you did my job?
Oh, sorry, Steve. Sorry, you want to go first?
I'll ask later this time, but
well, I'm thinking this, right? Like, that's a cool idea. How do we prevent the general public from seeing those things and just wreaking havoc on them out the street? Are they going to be on the street? Are they going to be on top of buildings where they're restricted access? Like,
I'm assuming they're not going to be camera. It'd be like walking up to a cop car and then just smashing with a bat. So I'm guessing the repercussions of if you did that and doing that to a drone dock. But yeah, probably I'm assuming they would be pretty high up there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And like there got to be ways to deter that or prevent it from happening completely. Because I know Fort Wayne PD, they actually, I believe they have their aircraft or like some of them like set up like either at certain locations. It might be on buildings, might not. But it's an interesting factor because okay, do you put them somewhere where access is restricted, or if you plan to put them out in the open, how do you let people know, like, hey, don't damage these things? It's, police department property, all that sort of stuff, right?
Well, why even limit it at that case to something that is stationary? Why not just have them mounted on top of the roofs of vehicles and they're just always having
they have those too
moving around?
They have those too.
They're pretty big though. Some of these docks are pretty sizable. Yeah. I mean, depending on what you're using, of course.
Could you mount those boxes on like your fleet of city transportation buses and they're just always in rotation around a city type of thing?
I like that.
If you have enough docks around the city, then you wouldn't have to do that. So I think that's their thing. Because I know Chandler PD out here, I think they have like 6 or 7 just for Chandler that are in squad cars. So
that's pretty.
I think their goal out in Vegas is to have a bunch of docks around the city. So if you're like in this quadrant or this quadrant, like boom, send them up. So you don't have to have that mobile recon just always going.
And that
One
Zoom,
thing that they have to worry about is like they all do like Fourth Amendment right reviews and all this stuff, like, you know, what's legal, what's not for them to drone, to
Yeah,
video.
because a lot of people talk about the like the surveillance state, right? Like how much do you implement these things until you have whole communities like being concerned or worry about how these things are operating or being operated. Like I'd be curious to see what the like I think it's a good thing, but I'd also be very curious to see what the standard operating procedures for using them are. Like when does it validate and like taking off and initializing a flight and using one when it's docked somewhere. I'd be very curious to see that in depth a little bit.
It's such a gray area for, right to privacy and public safety. And like you have to go outside with the expectation that no matter what, your privacy is gone. Like you're on camera. If you're outside, you're probably on a camera.
well, I think that's what the FAA says is there's no expectation of privacy when you're in a public setting. So,
I mean, that's what the law says. I mean,
yeah.
there's a ton of YouTubers out there, whether they're, you know, First Amendment auditors and, stuff like that. All these folks, even just those live streamers on Kick. They're like, oh, well, I can record you, and then they get pepper sprayed or whatever. Who knows? But there's no right to privacy out there if you're in a public setting.
It's always cool to be at these events because as more like, especially when Part 108 has the notice of proposed rulemaking has been released, because there's so many good conversations that are had at these events because everyone has their own ideas of how it affects different industry applications. I mean, I think that's one of the big benefits of attending a show like this, especially when it seems like there were so many more attendees this year than there has been at CUAV in previous years. At least to me, I know it's a bit of a it depends on whoever you talk to, but it's really good to have people of all kinds out there to have those kind of conversations because there's a lot of creative thoughts and we don't know what we don't know. So the more people we meet, they kind of teach us in a way.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
let's transition into that because obviously Part 108 was one of the biggest all-encompassing themes of this CUAV. What are different companies doing to prep for Part 108 being a thing, hopefully next year or end of this year?
I think a lot of companies are trying to innovate new solutions to these proposed standards. Like, I think the open source software is not really talked a lot about outside of like expos and curriculum settings. But if you have a base knowledge of how that software works, PX4 or Mission Planner, you're going to be in a good spot later when stuff starts to come down the pipeline because you're going to have that base understanding of how the system works. Some of the best pilots that are out there understand how the system works and have started on this open source software. So I think that's the biggest push is for the industries out there trying to develop systems to, accelerate the development and get on par with what DJI currently is and make it easy to use.
Think
Jones, can you explain what PX4 and Mission Planner, those kind of things are for our listeners, viewers?
Certainly, and some of and a lot of our students are going to become familiar with these, especially those in the ASCT program and even the certificate program, because we cover those a lot. And then, even in UAS 213, like you're assembling an aircraft, you're loading this what we call ArduPilot firmware. Think of like the brain. Or the software for the brain, the hardware, the brain itself that tells the aircraft, what to do, how to navigate, how to think, how to filter out sensor data, take inputs, understand them, and then tell the motors and the aircraft what to do. These ArduPilot, PX4, they are autopilot firmwares. They are operating systems that live on the hardware. They are the core thing that makes these aircraft possible. I think Michael, one of our contacts at the Drone Code Foundation, also CEO who runs his own business as well, he got to talk to him a little bit at CUAV. I think he said it best. There's a world within this world of UAVs that many people are starting to see and learn more about and understand the core importance of it. And that world is the ground control station softwares in these ArduPilot firmwares. Because just like we said, like the drones are a system, they're only as capable as the technology you put into them. When you have, as you improve the capabilities of the ArduPilot, of this software, of this operating system, you're increasing the capabilities of the entire aircraft as a whole. What technologies it can add on, all this stuff. It's pretty big. For those who don't know about them yet or hearing it for the first time, they're open source projects. So you can go online, you can look at them at GitHub. They have great online documentation. Drone Code Foundation is and this is not a paid tagline or anything. I see them as a really good resource, and gosh, back in 2012 would have been awesome to have them around. They're great guidance to get more information on all this stuff as well, and they have a huge community that works on this world within that world that I'm talking about.
Would you say that this open source software that's available has been the backbone to driving the industry forward? Like, is that too far to say? Because I feel like that's true.
I would say this: without ArduPilot or PX4, we wouldn't be at the stage we are now with UAVs, because they are what enabled the use of smart intelligence in a small package. Really, like I know Don, like you were into it around this time too. Like it used to be where you used one of these little Arduino board that you would flash with some code and then try to hook up everything and hoped it worked. Now you have a more finished product, like an actual ArduPilot with pinouts, everything to different sensors that makes it work. And that's all possible because individuals in this community worked on making it better, making it more substantial. Sorry, go ahead, Steve.
I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I know we don't have a few minutes left, but I wanted to see and hear your opinion on another takeaway from CUAV. So I wanted to talk about networking at the show. Do you have any advice for folks that are new to the industry or trying to advance in the industry, and how do they approach those conversations at a show like this?
That's a really good question, because networking is a good 70 to 80% of really advancing in the industry and learning more about it. Because I'd say the kind of, always have your cards ready, have your contact ready. If you don't have physical cards, there's apps out there like Hi Hello, which you can create a contact information, like get a QR code, have them scan it, exchange contacts, follow up with them right after, exchange emails, all that sort of stuff. But the big thing I would say, especially even for, those who have years in the industry, is just, besides the general networking facet, is what you can learn. Because again, the industry has so many different applications for it that you as a singular individual, it's darn near impossible to be able to keep track of all the possible opportunities and the changes and the shifts going on. Even as we talk here on this podcast, there's so much more that was going on at CUAV that, like, we can't cover it in this amount of time. It's unfathomable. So the more people you talk to, the more people you connect with, the more resources you have to stay abreast of the industry. And while SDI is a good resource to learn and understand, and especially the podcast, to see more what's going on in the industry and learn some additional skills, there is a multitude of different resources out there and individuals that you can talk to that you want to make sure that you stay in touch with, that engages your situational awareness a little bit more. All right, I'll stop. I know I went on a on a bit of a trail there. I'm sorry. I can go on forever about this.
And so for all three of you guys who attended, did any of the exhibitors there, express any hiring needs or skill gaps that they're looking to fill?
So Don, I'll let you go first on this. See if you had anybody.
Yeah. So one in particular was Aero Systems West, and they're looking for, I wouldn't say that they're hiring specifically, but I think the majority of people are actually looking for people that have a skill set in the open source community, like they understand that firmware, because they're going to be super valuable in the long run. And also, someone that has built a drone before and knows how the system works. And yeah, I think those two, understanding the software and knowing how to troubleshoot it or fix it, I think those two key traits are going to send you pretty far, for sure.
Agreed on that big time, because again, with all the companies that were there that were manufacturers, either from the US or not, one of the things that they were curious or asking questions of or wondering is, how do we scale up a workforce to really meet this new and increased demand? How do we get individuals who know how to not just develop or design them, but even know how to assemble them properly, who can follow an assembly guidance document and do all that, who can flash the firmware, who can calibrate the sensors, who can get the product ready to be able to ship out to a customer. Because with these systems that we're seeing, I mean, DJI has to do it too. Once they flash something, you got to set the aircraft all up. You have to go through the setup process to make it work properly. So it's the same thing that they're facing. So students that are in classes that we have, like UAS 213, they build the aircraft, they assemble it, they flash the PX4 firmware, which is one of those two major firmwares that companies are using. They go through all those calibrations, they bind the transmitter, they calibrate the electronic speed controllers, all these things. And that alone could be a skill set that's either used in a production line at any one of these companies or at the development side on any one of these companies. And we're talking about strictly development, UAS 231. You're being put through an entire flight test phase and campaign in that class, essentially, and learning what each factor of these aircraft are being tested. And I'd say these companies that are now coming into the space that are doing those skills and need to manufacture as well, they're looking for individuals who have that experience. And the cool thing, again, tooting SDI's horn here a little bit, just being open about it.
Toot away.
The skills that we're teaching, the skills that we're showing is specifically in those two classes for what a lot of these manufacturers are looking for are in those courses. And the cool thing is, for the practical assignments in those courses, you could take it to those employers and essentially say, here's my proof that I've done this before, or that I have some sort of experience in this before. Instead of just putting it on a resume and hope your resume gets seen, you can send in a portfolio or even your videos and a link on an online portfolio to show them, hey, here's my proof of work. Here's my proof of experience and what I've done. So anyways, that's one of the things I saw at the show and heard about. And we're hoping to build some connections more with some of these companies and, making sure that, the skills that we're looking for is the skills that we're putting out there to the industry.
And, if you feel like you have a skill gap or you're just starting out, come to an event. Talk to James. James will have a 2-hour conversation with you of what the skill gap is, how you can progress through it, and that also involves networking. So it's 2 birds. It's probably like 19 birds, but just make sure you have some water and a E. coli. So
full disclosure, Steve, I felt bad sometimes because I felt like I was abandoning Christian and Don at the booth because I was talking to individuals for so long at some points. But that's just me. You get me on.
You get control. You control it. He loves this industry. He loves his job. So I can't hate on
it. Pretty impressive that you could continue to talk.
Don and I were like taking bets on the over under of like what this conversation was going to be. Like this went over 45 minutes.
And the team of advice, if I was going to CUAV next year, what should I prep beforehand to get the most out of the show?
Okay. I'd say cards. If you're looking for a job, portfolio, something that showcases your skills, something that you can talk to someone on site about. Show a honest interest in the company that you're looking to talk to or the people that you're talking to. Because I'm telling you this, when you have a natural enthusiasm or you have an enthusiasm about the industry, it'll show to that individual. It'll speak volumes, even louder than the words that you're saying. It's the way that you say them. It's the way that you present yourself. It's the way that you showcase yourself. I met one individual really awesome individual. His name was Dan, and he was just getting into the industry, but he had a lot of enthusiasm. He knew what he wanted to do. He knew what he get involved in. That stood out. I still remember to this time. And it also helps that he had a really cool business card. He 3D printed it, had a QR code on there and everything. Really cool application for 3D printing. But that's just one of the small things that I would say is like when you're to prepare for these shows, know what you're going after, know what you're trying to learn, because don't just come into it as like, hey, it's a way of getting a job or forming those connections. It's also a way of learning what else goes on in the industry and more opportunities to learn as well. Every opportunity is an opportunity to learn. So that's what I'd say go into it with.
Don, what do you got?
I would say if you know nothing and you want to attend one of these events and get a little bit more clarity on the way the industry is heading, I would say 2 things. Either brush up on your documentation for PX4 and ArduPilot, right? Because if you read that, you're going to understand some of the terminology that's being used in the industry, because that's how we speak at the expo shows. If you hear the word PID controller or telemetry, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, I know what that is. Or take our SUT program. Shameless plug.
Mine is learn about pressure washing, man. Like, it is a booming industry. And you know what? Every city has buildings, and they get dirty because there's weather. So it's something like, if I wanted to do a side hustle and I was willing to put some money into it, I think that would be it. It seems just so fun, so cool.
And it's not just pressure washing buildings. You can think of it like applying a film over a greenhouse or anything that you could spray from a drone, right?
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
Charity car washes are going to look way different here in the future. So,
I was literally thinking that.
I'm thinking of like, those things that they use to de-ice the wings on an airplane in cold weather.
Yeah.
That too.
Except you'd have
Maybe
to
a little bit
de-ice
overkill.
My drone is to de-ice the drones that get.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, you're right. No, never mind. Never mind. That was a bad idea on my part. Didn't think that through.
Anyways, all right. So we've kind of hit our time here. CUAV, awesome show. If you can make it out, make it out. I'm going to try to have a rep from there on the podcast at some point. But if you want more information about our programs here, go to sdi.edu today, request some information, go through the course curriculum, all that kind of stuff. But for James, Don, Steve, I've been Christian, and this was The Flight Path. Say bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
See you next time.